Hey guys, welcome to your introduction about an online lab. And again, regardless of which class you're in, as long as you're in an online section, what's going to happen for you is that most of your material is going to be in ALEKS. Once you get past the exam materials, the homework that goes with each of those, you can close that up, or you can come up here and use the filter, and I want to say virtual labs. That'll show you the labs. The other thing that you could do is to say, I want to look at the quizzes, which is going to be your post labs. Okay, so those are the two things that you've got for those. All right. Now, virtual labs and your post labs. So, what happens in this online course is that you can't do a physical lab. I mean, you can't. You're online. You can't actually do that. So, we've given you some simulations to try and help you understand what you would have been learning if you were in a physical lab. Okay, this is the best match we can get to what we're actually doing in a physical lab for the actual in-person classes. Okay, these experiments are a little tedious, a little complicated, a little pain in the neck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come out of the student view. I'm going to come into assignments for my back end so that I can show you some things because they aren't open in the student view for you. So I want to come down here and look at one of the virtual labs, and I'm going to look at one of the later ones because there's some things I want to talk about. So when you come in and you start doing one of these virtual labs, you're going to start and you're going to get some basic information about what this lab is and what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. Key concepts, overview, sort of what it's about, and then your score. Okay. Now, for more detailed information about what this lab is about and what we're trying to teach you, then there's stuff in D2L that goes with each of these experiments. So the numbers that you'll see actually correspond to this lab manual. So colligative properties was experiment 11. If you come in here and look, experiment 11 is freezing point depression. If you were to click on this, this will take you to the information you'd have for a physical class, and it'll talk about what that lab is about. So you can see why were we doing this? Why is this important? What would we actually do in a lab? And what would we ask you to calculate? Okay, so there's some more information there that you can look at. Not necessary, but it can be very helpful. So when I come in and I actually attempt to do one of the experiments, a couple of things. So I can go to my laboratory simulation. It's always going to ask you some questions. And it says, yeah, maybe. Of course, you got to make sure you read it right. So there you go. But there's going to be some initial questions. Then you're going to come in and do some lab stuff. Now, you're going to collect a bunch of lab data, and it's going to tell you how to collect that data. That's what the purpose of the lab is. And it's a lot of dragging stuff around and doing this and doing that. And I will record stuff to tell you what I think the pitfalls are for each of these labs. Now, I have some old ones, but I'm planning on doing some new ones. You'll also see down here that there's a how-to, and there's always a how-to. Every lab has a how-to. Now, when these how-tos come up, I make screenshots of these things. So I'll actually go in, I'll make a screenshot. I'll say, I'm going to screenshot this part, copy that, and I'll put that into, I tend to put them into OneNote. I say, okay, here's that part. And then I'll scroll down and do the rest of it. And this one's particularly long, which is part of why I did this. But then, I get that whole explanation part. Now this explanation tells you how to do all the calculations. So when we do the post-lab quiz, there's going to be a lot about how do we do those calculations? And you're going to have to do some more. So you need to know what those instructions are. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of this data because I want to know what did it look like. Now, the other thing is anything that I calculated, so I have to calculate things, then I'm going to write over on the side, once I put this screenshot into my OneNote, I'm going to write over on the side how I got those numbers. What calculation did I do to do that calculation? So I can see what I needed to do. So that way when I get into that quiz, I know what to do. It is OpenNote, it is open resource, so you can absolutely do that. Now, when you do the labs, if you don't, when you do the labs, you have as many times to go through it as you need to. You can keep doing it if you want to get a perfect score. That's fine. You can do it. Not a big deal. The post labs, you only get two times on each one, except the first one. You get 3 tries on that just to get used to the format. Okay, so there is that part of it. So we want to make sure that you're doing this as well as you can. Like I said, there will be some informational, hey, here's how to do those labs. Now, where is that going to live? That's a good question. So in the lab itself, or in the D2L itself, what you're going to see is there's going to be a new section that comes up down, or there'll be a section that comes up down here that'll say lab videos. And that's where you'll find them. So there'll be a section for lab videos, and I will have them recorded there. It's usually a document that talks about here's what the experiment is, here's where it is, and here's a link to it in ALEKS, here's the date that it's due, and here is the video that goes with that particular thing. Okay, now the way that this works is whatever day that this thing appears in your schedule. So we're looking at a sample schedule for an online course now. You'll see that this was assigned to be done on the 22nd of August for this particular class. It may not be the same for yours, but this one was the 22nd of August. And it's due on the 29th, so it's the following week. You get a week to work on it. Now, if you don't turn it in by the 29th, 2 things will happen. 1, you won't be able to take the post lab. You don't turn it in, and you can turn it in and get a 0 on it and still take the post lab, but you won't be able to do the post lab until you've turned something in. There's a connection between them. The other thing is that if you turn it in late, then there will be a penalty taken. Late labs are 50% penalty. Late homework is a 40% penalty. Again, for your particular class, your homework is going to be due on this red date. And if you turn it in beyond that, it's going to be a 40% penalty on the grade because of it. Okay? So I think that's everything I have to talk about for the lab. Again, for the lab for 110, you're not required to keep a notebook. You don't have to have any of the notes. I mean, you may want to put them into a composition book, like a notebook, so that then you have them later to refer to, but that's entirely up to you. Okay, that's entirely up to you. I have students who do it that way, so then when they take 111 and they are required to have the notebook, they can just continue in the same book. Okay, so that's the introduction for the online labs. One last thing, under assignments, you will see that there is this post-lab stoichiometry. Now there's a post-lab in ALEKS for this. Now, are you required to do the paperwork? Yes and no. So there's paperwork that goes with this. This will walk you through all of the calculations that are required for that post lab. I want you to do the work on this paper and then turn it in so that I can grade it for partial credit if that's necessary. Okay, so that's where that is. That's where you get it and you turn it in here and you actually get 1 score for that based on the post lab that you do in ALEKS. But this is where the scratch work for that comes in. Excuse me, sorry. So that's that post lab for that. Now, in 111, there's a different one. It's not the stoichiometry one. There's a redox lab where you have to write out a bunch of redox equations, balancing redox equations, and it'll be the same thing. You'll need to turn that in on paper. So both classes have one thing that they have to turn in on paper for that. Okay? So that should be everything that you need in terms of the online lab experience. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Thank you for joining me yet again, and I will see you again soon. Thanks, guys.